you very much for being invited. And I hope I can say something of sense to already what has been said. Thank you very much for a very lovely lecture, and everyone who's talked before. I'm going to be a storyteller, so no images. So just
you did
oh
this
yeah, yes, let's do that. Oh, great. Thank you. I just wanted to start by saying that maybe I'm here, I think, in the capacity that I have packed my bag and unpacked it many times, and also meeting all these exciting people, which are also packing their bags and going everywhere in the world. So, so being some kind of world traveler through art. But at the same time, I just want to probably maybe pick on, I'll pick from different people, whatever everyone has said, just mishmash. So maybe I'll just start with picking up to what Antonio said with his last quote from Gita Kapoor about the strength and the weakness of this idea of internationalism, or the big events, art events. And then I'm going to go back to the to probably maybe on something, maybe the good part of it and what it has done in relation to Africa. So first of all, I think every time you have a big international show and you are the other, because as Kjetil mentioned, that the rules have already been created. So even when you come, somehow you represent the other from either southern, or usually when it comes to Africa, you're like from Africa, not from Zambia. Which some of us find it offended, because I like to say I'm actually from Zambia, but I'm actually a Livingstonian. So I'm not even saying I'm Zambian, but I usually go like, I'm a Livingstonian because I come from Livingstone, born and bred in Livingstone. So on that point, I'll start with the, so that's part of the problem. And also, as an opinion which I have, I also feel that this idea of these international kind of trendy, lovely shows, that they also have created this kind of fast, trendy, something cool to do, that you have like an influx of curators which are flying in, popping in, arriving maybe in Ghana, picking the hottest young artists there, and what then that creates, you have like exciting young artists which are coming to show in different international shows, but then there's no research which is created, a database which is going to stay long to be able to kind of like, if we are going to be on the same path that we could look at art from Nigeria or maybe say the West Africa, and we can talk about different, kind of a history, concrete research database, which we could actually put on the same level with Western art. And then you also, because the slow or the no research, you also kind of create a panic in when it comes to the art development, or the what do you call it? Oh, what's the English word? Sorry, I'm not English, so it's fine. So, I'm a little bit also kind of a little bit nervous.
Give it to us Norwegian.
Far away from that. So I'll stick to English. But what I wanted to say that it actually creates a panic among the kind of research on the artist's production process. So you have today it's like a lot of young people which are in art schools in Africa because they have seen, because it's not like maybe, I heard somebody who is just maybe a few years older than me who said to me that when we were at art school, we didn't know curators. We were not like trying to work and trying to see who is the next curator who is going to visit our school. But today, in art schools, you have young people which have list of who is going to come and how they could get themselves to a certain point. And that actually kind of derails the other finding yourself as an artist. So I think that this is all created with this international kind of emergency that people have to get somewhere, which somehow one would think that maybe we are rushing ourselves into extinction without leaving a proper database. Then I'm going to go maybe on the good side. Then I'm going to talk about the emergence of a different kind of curatorial process which is happening at least in Africa. I can't talk about Brazil or Southern America because I've not been there, neither will I talk about Russia, but I'll talk about this Africa because in a way I'm closer to the different kind of discourses which are happening in different parts of Africa. So I would say that the last 5, maybe even say maybe 10 years, we've had people like Simone Jami, Okuyenen, or Olu that have gone in front, BC and all these people. So, but then you have a new trend of young people like Alvira, Gabi, all these people in the same generation, which have gone back to the idea that we have to decode or reconstruct the history. Because in that way, then we would have to find ways of creating or even suggesting ideas or kind of creating a history that is we could put in par with what has already happened in order to find ourselves. Because if we are going to if we are going to function and if we're going to be represented in these international shows, which is a good thing, which is the good part, but because the bad part with this, because the lack of the research part of our existence, so we have to recreate it ourselves. So which is probably maybe this actual emergence, I feel that it has come in because of this international, because we've seen curators going into Africa and then it's coming out, but at the same time, what is remaining? So this is why you also have the Center of History Reenactment. You have Chimurenga magazine, which was started in 2002, which I would say that is also actually part of the pioneer because they are like research based. You had them in Documenta 12, Tony, and also because then this is also going together with literature, because somehow it has become important for the art and the literature part to kind of somehow meet up. So you have the same Chimurenga, for instance, in Cape Town is working with music, art, and literature. You have Kwane in Nairobi, which is, so now I'm talking about the local, but this local is actually like an agent, which is straight firing into the international, you know. I remember a few years ago during Documenta 12, Tony saying that we should make a lot of workshops, you know, get all these small Kwane and Farafina now in Nigeria with Chimamanda, who's been also working with Little Turkus and the what do you call the Association of Library, what is it called here? The library, Dijkman, the foundation with all the public libraries. I don't know what it's called, but because this kind of cooperation started when Aslak was director here, and it goes on where it concentrates on the ideology and pedagogic kind of way of looking at arts and culture and literature. Now I don't know how many minutes do I have, because now I'm rambling, I'm everywhere. I just want to.
You have 5.5 minutes.
Okay,
left.
so just this part which I've mentioned, I'll jump to what, because I remember Brynja was writing to the others that I was going to talk about education. But now I'm going to, because of this I talked about pedagogical kind of way of looking at things, at art and culture and literature. So I'll jump back to the idea of schools and thought, because which kind of in a way is part of this idea, which again we go back, for instance, Natalie mentioned about the Academy with Awards, which is also based on that you'd have like an intense week of looking at both theory and the art making process, and then also the young artists themselves being able to kind of to work and explore different themes, which actually now is happening. Almost the same kind of process or kind of program is happening with ISACO or ASICO, which is with the CCA in Lagos with BC Silva, who is also part of these different organizations which have come up in Africa, so which are local but in the direction of education. And so that's I'm talking, all this is local, but it's very much connected, because the people that are running these places talk, as I mentioned, Gabi, Binyavanga in Kenya, Kwame, in Alexandria with Bassam, in Morocco with Les Appartements. All these are also people that are working on the international art scene, and then they take that the frustration or whatever they are going through and go back to the local and try to create something which is going to be different. And I think probably that is our answer, instead of the theorizing of the problem, but we are actually trying to find a way to solve it in our own way, and hopefully that this movement is going to affect back on the West and maybe create a different diversity. I don't know if I'm very hopeful about that, but I hope something comes up. But it's already happening between, for instance, now you have the Sao Paulo, through the Sao Paulo Biennial, you have this connection because of trying to revisit the history between Brazil and Ghana. In Accra, because you have the Victoria City, which is actually built by the slaves that came back to Ghana and they built this city. And so people are finding these connections, so which I think that is creating an internationalism which is healthy. So I think maybe, so I don't know if I've answered the question or if I have just gone somewhere in my head. And as you know, I'm an artist and not a curator or an art critic or those people that write nicely, but my head is quite noisy, and I hope I could get a few points, and hopefully it becomes more organized in the discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you.